Good afternoon. My name is Matt Doxa. I'm the CEO of Excelsior Wealth Partners, and we bring you our monthly podcast about what we tell ourselves is relevant financial information that our clients can use. So you be the ultimate judge of whether that's the case or not, but that is our intent. I am sitting here with regular contributors, Matt Champion, Kevin Christopher, and Lou Geckel. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so tackling what I call, I'll use the word contrarian. I'll use the word or the phraseology of counterculture. You know, what you think should be the case isn't necessarily how it unfolds, and it's all within the backdrop of retirement transitions. So we run a firm called Excelsior Wealth Partners, headquartered out of Syracuse, New York, and we've kind of gotten into a niche with what I would call retirement transitions. The first 5 years before a looming retirement and the next 5 years after that subsequent retirement. We do a lot of seminars and workshops in the marketplace, so we've had a lot of different scenarios, but those different scenarios over time become, kind of the norm when you do this for a lot. And I won't use the word expert because I'll stop short of that, but we have worked on a lot of cases in that retirement transition spot to affectionately, come close to calling ourselves experts. We'll focus on Social Security mistakes. We'll focus on Medicare mistakes, and then we're going to kind of hone in on why it is that some of our clientele come to our workshops when they have an existing advisor, and that advisor, for whatever reason, from what we're told, stops short of doing some of the services and the legwork on the transition that is retirement with Medicare, Social Security, those type of things. So if I were to say to the panel, why is it that our clients that become clients of Excelsior tell us that they have a really good advisor, but that advisor, that financial advisor, didn't cover Medicare, didn't cover Social Security, when to take it? So I would submit to you that Social Security is one of the most successful governmental programs of all time. I don't even know if that's debatable, although I'll use that word given its track record. And I'll use the fact that Medicare is America's retirement health insurance program. So if we have two national programs, Social Security and Medicare, and a client is retiring, yet they go to their financial advisor and that isn't part of the scope. Matt, give me your take on that.
So a lot of what I get to see, and I've been doing this for going on 15 years now, but a lot of what I get to see out there in terms of our industry with advisors is they focus on particularly one area, and a lot of times it's money management. It's, hey, let us look at your portfolio, let us look at your investments, let us try to tweak some of that, and then we'll keep an eye on growing your wealth. But where they come up short is, to your point, these areas, Social Security and Medicare, they tend to shy away from, and I don't know. A lot of it is they're just maybe themselves are not up on it as much as they need to be. They don't want the liability of maybe giving out wrong information. But what I get to see with many advisors is blanket advice, blanket statements. If everybody should retire and draw Social Security at 62 because you don't know if it's going to be around. So a lot of the advice that's out there, again, I think it might come down to lack of knowledge on the advisor's part. They tend to skirt around it and focus on one area. But also, like I said, blanket advice that a lot of people tend to just give statements that they feel apply to everybody's situation when everybody's a little bit different.
Kevin Christopher here. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't pay for the research on Social Security. They don't use the tools to help make those recommendations. The software that we use here isn't cheap, and it's an added expense, and most advisors just don't want to pay it for something that they're not going to see an instant rate of return on. And right, wrong, or indifferent. It's something we need to know when you're building a financial plan for your clients. It's just a vital piece of the puzzle. And the same thing with Medicare being, I think advisors try to specialize in one thing, and I know I'm not a Medicare expert by any stretch, but we have one here for that reason, because you can't be a jack of all trades, and you need to have a team that can cover those type of things. Lou?
Yeah, Lou Geckel here. Matt, if I understood your question, you wanted to know why do we think clients come over to us? I think it's a couple reasons. I mean, one, our seminars give them some information that they probably don't give in other places. We do talk about those two pillars of retirement in America, Social Security, Medicare. We have the tools to help people secure the proper Social Security elections. And we also bring in outside experts that focus on Medicare, because we know it, we understand it, but we're not the experts. So it's because we're experts in some areas that are very important to them, and also because we bring in experts in areas that we not focus on but are still important to our clients.
That's fair. I'll go a little bit deeper, and I will talk about what I think is the root cause, because at the end of the day, you're going to retire if you're, typical age 65 for Medicare or 62 plus with Social Security. You're going to be eligible, and you're going to retire for the first time, and it's possible that you make mistakes because you've never retired before. And a lot of times you're so busy living your life and working that you don't spend hours about, how, as a client, how to best retire. So I think it's fair to go to a financial advisor and say, hey, put this all together for me. Where's my health insurance coming from? Should I have a supplement? Should I trigger Social Security or Medicare, my company insurance while I'm still working seems to be better than. So there's a whole multitude of questions that you would have. So you would think that you would turn to a financial advisor, except for what I'm about to share. So I would say, hey, Wizard of Oz style, let's look behind the curtain. In my experience, what I find is more of a cultural problem. And what I mean by that is if you work at a wirehouse as a financial advisor, an insurance company, a bank, what have you, those companies, make their money, their profit margins, they manufacture products, and a majority of wirehouses, for instance, don't manufacture a Medicare policy, so there's really no financial incentive for them to train their brokers to do so. So what you end up with, if you believe me on that one, is financial advisors that should be up on Medicare that just aren't, because why would they be? The company they work for doesn't manufacture it. There isn't as much training on that as there is other product lines, and it just manifests itself into culture. The management of XYZ company isn't paid off of Medicare sales, so it just falls by the wayside because they need to get paid, and they do what pays the bills on some level. Now that's a blanket statement. I'll get some hate mail for that one, but I don't think I'm wrong. I really don't. It's companies or Fortune 500 companies, they need to make their bottom line on what they manufacture. They don't manufacture all products, so you're left with a loophole that is, a area that your advisor should be up on that they're just not. And I don't even blame the advisor. It's not a knock. Again, blanket statement, there are advisors out there that go the extra mile and figure this stuff out on their own, but it's in spite of the training they receive. And I have, all the data in the world to support that one. So before I get the hate mail, I check to see if I'm correct on this one. Let's transition into a little bit more specific. So, okay, let's suppose that we are onto something that a lot of advisors aren't up on Medicare for a multitude of reasons. And let's suppose that they do a little bit of Social Security analysis, but it's not it might stop short of a formal recommendation, depending. Let's suppose that the clients are left with some shortcomings because of that. So let's transition into Medicare itself. And specifically, what are the Medicare mistakes that the clients that come to you, Matt, either know or don't know?
So there's a few top mistakes that I see over and over. A big one that I've seen recently, actually, is when we're having a conversation around Medicare. A lot of people aren't aware of the dates as far as annual enrollment, open enrollment, but more importantly, the dates around when you need to sign up for certain parts of Medicare. Where if you miss a deadline or a date, then a lot of these have penalties that you're stuck with in terms of the premium you pay or other areas. So I think a lot of it is just lack of knowledge around when you need to sign up for certain parts and what the ramifications could be if you do miss a date or a deadline. Like I said, that's happened last 2 or 3 meetings that I've had. That's came up, and 2 people were actually subject to a penalty and they weren't aware of it. So again, a lot of it is doing your own research, but to your point, is the advisor that you're working with at least up on it or has a resource that they can go to give you proper advice.
Kevin?
The big one I see is people just go be at Wegmans and they have the guy there pitching Excelsior, for example, and they end up with an Excelsior plan, and it may not be the best plan for them because some of the Medicare people can only use, if they're employed by Excelsior, you're only going to get an Excelsior plan, and it may not be the best for you. So instead of going to see a broker that's independent, they end up, again, in that company mantra line where, if you go to talk to AARP, you're going to get an AARP policy. You go see the Excelsior guy, you're going to get an Excelsior. And that may not be in your best interest. And that's the mistake that I see most of the time. And when we sit down with people, we have them sit down with our guy, and when they go through it, we find out, he'll tell the people, it makes me laugh, oh, you're paying this. No, I'm not. And then I'll show them that they're actually paying a different amount than they really think they are. And he ends up saving them a lot of money and getting them, add-ons like gym benefits or dental or vision that they're not getting through their current plan because they're just going to see that one guy. Lou?
I would say that some of the biggest mistakes are twofold. Most individuals, to your point, Kevin, will just pick whatever insurance company they may have had at work if they're available. So I would call that research. So they don't want to do the diligence on the website even to figure out what they really need. They don't tend to go to a third party who might acknowledge and understand some of their needs. And then I think that they people will just kind of fall into whatever it is that they need to because they're 64 in 9 months and they got to sign up. And I think that is deadly, or not deadly, but it definitely can cost quite a bit of money.
All fair points. At this point, we tend to see some of the same repetitive type of mistakes with your health insurance, post-retirement. The not looking at your doctors to see if they're in network, not truly understanding HMOs, using a high deductible plan when you have expensive prescriptions, high cost drugs, not understanding the various riders that are out there. Matt mentioned, dental and vision and some of that. A lot of people aren't up on that. Not continuing to shop throughout the years. So there's a misguided loyalty to, a company, and those companies tend to ebb and flow. And we've seen a lot of examples where people are paying ridiculous amount because they just haven't shopped it and the company's no longer competitive in, a particular state. And then I'll end on this one. This one happens a lot. Husband and wife had said company that they both, have a loyalty to, although one health of one spouse is very different. Somebody has had a bout of cancer or something, and they have the same plan as their spouse, thinking that there's some sort of rationale. Although if you have two distinctly different health overview, it's very possible that you may need a different type of plan that's tailored to your individual health, not the fact that you're married and it's easy to have one plan, one company, that type of thing. So there's a couple. We can go in depth, more, but those are just some generalities we tend to see with the Medicare space. But there's no bigger cost in retirement that I'm aware of. Perhaps debatable with housing or maybe taxes, but your health insurance is going to be one of the biggest costs, if not the biggest cost that you'll have. And to have all these mistakes that we see in the marketplace because your advisor really just doesn't specialize in or isn't up or hasn't made inroads to make sure this gets done is just problematic. It is. I'll call it like I see it. There's some. Here's what I would say. So when you go to your financial advisor and you're working on a retirement plan to transition, to ask a question like, how many Medicare policies have you written, is a fair question, because more times than not, it's going to be zero. And if the answer is zero, then you have some issues. And the next question is, well, who do you refer your business to? And if they can intelligently show a referral to a qualified person and make sure it gets done, no issues. It's, the fact that doesn't get done is the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, at least from the clients that come to our seminars that they tend to share with us. Okay, on to the wonderful world, of Social Security mistakes. So we've identified the Medicare mistakes. Some advisors drives me nuts. Some advisors call Medicaid, Medicare, and Medicare, Medicaid two very distinct governmental programs, and they interchange them on accident all the time. It literally drives me nuts. It's like using irregardless in a sentence. It's just not even a word. Literally drives me nuts. Social Security. What are the mistakes that your clients bring your way in the realm of Social Security? Matt Champion?
A lot of what I get to see, and it seems like a lot of people aren't even aware, but is when people will, they're 62, so all of a sudden they're eligible for Social Security, and they've been working their whole life paying into this program. They can finally get some money out of it, that without running any type of analysis, different strategies, doing some research. A lot of people will just run and sign up because they can. They're now eligible and they want to get some money out of it. But there's some issues there, especially if you are still working, still employed. So that's when I get to see quite a bit. Hey, I'm 62, I'm eligible, I'm going to go sign up. Well, are you still working? Yeah. Well, there's some income limits that you're going to want to keep an eye on, because if you're over those, you're going to see a substantial reduction in your Social Security. And a lot of times when I have that conversation with clients, it's almost like a deer in headlights that they weren't aware that they thought they could just go sign up and keep working and without any issues. So that's a big one that I see quite a bit. Kevin?
Along with that, what I see a lot of is people don't understand that it's a 6% reduction from your full retirement age till age 62. So every year that you delay, you're getting around 6% compounding growth on your Social Security that's going to last you the rest of your life. So if you're working and you don't need the money, a lot of people will grab it just because it's there, and they don't need to, and you're giving up. If I told you I could get you 6%, rate of return year in and year out, you would love me. And you're giving up that opportunity to do that, and then it's more like an 8% from full retirement age to 70. So depending on your asset levels and your strategies overall and your overall retirement plan, it may make sense to delay it longer. I'm not saying it's the right strategy for everybody, but it should be at least in the conversation. And most of the time it seems not to be with the advisors. Lou?
Yeah, Lou Geckel. Boy, I got to tell you, the biggest mistake I see is with married couples. They just very rarely have a strategy to get what they can from Social Security. Lots of times you'll see both spouses, regardless of the difference in their ages, say I'm claiming at 62 or 65. Very rarely do they take a look at all the different options out there to maximize benefits, either through their own or their spousal benefits. And it's just, it's sad because there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be left on the table over a lifetime, especially with longevity creeping up every year. Kevin, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, there's one other thing that I forgot to mention. It's the widow's benefit. And a lot of people don't understand that as a widow, or you can get the benefits at age 60. And that's huge to a lot of people. And it's a big, big impact to retirements, being able to claim at age 60 off of, your spouses. And I see people being shocked by that at least once every time we run one of these workshops.
Gentlemen, I think there was what they say on radio, a little bit of dead air there for a minute. We would have been fired if we were on public radio. We happen to have some seminars this evening, so we have 133 people signed up for this evening, maybe half show, whatever, and then the same thing on Thursday night, 2 nights from now. But we've had people attend our seminars and actually get red in the face, angered, realizing that they may have made a mistake when it comes to their Social Security strategy. The one thing is just, being cognizant that there are multiple strategies. I mean, multiple. And if you don't spend hours of your life researching this, you can be in for a rude awakening. And then when you go down, a lot of people will file for Social Security benefits online on the .gov site, and there's just literally not a bunch of information. And if you go down to the actual local Social Security Administration office, they're limited on what they can share with you. So you just have, very much like we were talking about with Medicare, same thing with Social Security, is you have these things that you should know that your financial advisor may not be up on, and then the Social Security Administration may not be able to give you a formal recommendation, and you can't really get that information online without spending a yeoman's, amount of time. The whole thing is just, it's riddled with issues. I will say we've had people not, astute people, learned individuals, not know that their stay-at-home spouse, male, female, what have you, that took care of the kids qualifies for half of their Social Security based on, their spousal merit. Most basic thing in the world, but we've had people literally not know that, just not have any. We just had a client come in just recently, and I felt really good sharing that because the one spouse was a high income earner, and the other spouse qualified for half of their Social Security, and they literally didn't know that. So we got to tell them 2 years from now, you get a really nice check from the government, and they had no clue. Like, you can't make this stuff up. Survivorship that has been brought up, cost of living adjustments. A lot of people don't factor the cost of living adjustments, the historical that goes on the increase of the Social Security check. Very much a team, a team sport. When you factor in survivorship, knowing that one of the spouses will pass on before the other, unless you see once in a blue moon that broken heart syndrome where once in a while the spouse will die within a couple hours of the other spouse, which is always interesting. But aside from that, there's a survivorship option that Social Security the administration has been under high amounts of scrutiny for not giving the proper guidance when it comes to survivorship. Now, Kevin alluded to that blackout period and at age 60 when that the survivor benefit seems to start again, but one spouse might make a lot more than the other, and to delay or take early, knowing that that's going to be the survivorship at some point, that part gets mistaken a lot. It really does. So I guess I'll leave it at that. We have come to see a lot of different strategies, a lot of different successful strategies. And at this point, we'll come into a relationship when a client gets their financial advice from the 401k provider of, Fidelity or Vanguard or TIA CREF. And, that advisor is really good at that plan. They know the ins and outs of the TIA CREF plan, but they really stop short of the Medicare, the Social Security integration. And we see that time and time again. So I hope I'm not being dramatic or overemphasizing it, but it just drives me nuts that people don't have the ammunition, that it would take to have a successful retirement, and that they make these mistakes that are pretty basic if you've been doing this for a long time. And the way the system is set up, to not be able to rely on the financial advisor is just disheartening, at least in my mind. So I will leave it at that. You're more than welcome to attend our seminars. We usually do a couple a month. We're becoming well known in our marketplace for the advice that we're delivering in a full encompassing plan that takes into all these different things that we just spoke of, and not just what we're focused on, which is a big disconnect there, at least that I see. Any final parting shots? So once in a while, as someone speaks, you tend to say, "Oh, geez, I thought of this." Any final pieces, Matt, or anyone that you would add?
Yeah, I would just say to your point there, if you're currently working with an advisor, or you have been for a while now, and you're approaching that retirement age, then these are, if they're not coming to you with these types of conversations, and they're really just leaving it up to you, then you're probably missing the boat in terms of that all-encompassing plan. I mean, you talk about two of the biggest important decisions when it comes to retirement planning. So again, if you work with somebody currently and you have yet to have this conversation, bring it up, or, as Matt alluded to, check out our website. Seminars are there. Feel free to attend an event and hopefully pick up some information there that you weren't aware of.
It's pretty hard to do an all-encompassing plan for a client and come up with distribution strategies and, build a good retirement plan without taking into account the Social Security and the biggest expense being Medicare. If you're not covering those things in your plans, then you're definitely missing the boat, and there's definitely some holes.
So I will end on that. I always try to have the mantra of, geez, if my grandmother were to go to, her Fidelity 401k advisor, and Fidelity does a good job at this, by the way, but as an example, if they left her short of giving her a proper strategy on integrating their 401k with those Social Security and Medicare, programs, and she subsequently figured out that she left a bunch of money on the table, I just would be like, you got to be kidding me with the way this works. If the medicine doesn't apply, don't take it. If you have a world-class financial advisor that is up on these things or makes it their practice to, then, you're in good hands. But I will say statistically, you're probably an anomaly if that happens because of all the things we just talked about. So I don't need to rehash that, but trust me, we've had thousands of people come through our seminars or sign up for our seminars, and it's just the same story of, geez, I have a really good advisor. I think I'm good. I don't think I need another advisor. And then they sit through our seminars, and their jaws are just open that, Social Security gives you a lump sum if you're full retirement age. Things like that you should know. You should have that in your arsenal in order to make a decision. Whether you take it or not is irrelevant, but you should know that. And time again, these clients, or they become clients, some of them, these seminar attendees are just baffled that they weren't made aware of that. And it just drives me nuts. It's your retirement. You shouldn't have to worry about this stuff. You should be getting world-class advice. And if you're not, then, that's why I get fired up and passionate about these conversations. So I will end there. Any gentlemen, any final parting shots? Good. All right. As always, I appreciate your time. Be on the lookout for our next podcast. Thank you very much.